Emperor Qin has already had his skills adjusted. This was just revealed over on the official Rise of Kingdoms Instagram page, so today we're going to talk about it because some in the community are saying that this is a big nerf to the commander. However, I personally think that there is some component of this change that could actually be a buff. So let's jump right in and take a look. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Of course, before we jump in, if you guys appreciate breaking news for Rise of Kingdoms, make sure you subscribe down below and click the thumbs up. It really helps out the channel a ton. Now, this adjustment was first brought to my attention by Panda Knight over on my Discord. I appreciate you for pinging me over there. If you guys haven't joined my Discord, link is down below. But this is an official post on the Rise of Kingdoms Instagram page that says, governors, to provide a more balanced and diverse gameplay experience, we're adjusting Qin Shi Huang's third and expertise skills. Check the images for full details. So here we can see the third skill on Emperor Qin Shi Huang, Thunder Shakes Earth. If this commander's troop is in the field and has not been in a building for at least 10 seconds, it gains the Eternal Emperor effect for 8 seconds whenever it enters combat. Can trigger once every 60 seconds. Whenever their troop deals direct damage with Iron Pierces Bronze or the Eternal Emperor effect, it deals extra direct damage to all targets and drains 10 rage from them, damage factor of 200, which is waning. Also, you spend 20 rage per target, won't trigger without sufficient rage. Okay, so as they mentioned, this is the third skill on Emperor Qin. Now what's mentioned here is effectively you are dealing extra direct damage when you deal damage with the Iron Pierces Bronze skill, which I believe is the second skill, or the Eternal Emperor effect. So now let's go ahead and compare this to what the third skill looked like before. This is what it used to look like. It says if this commander's troop is in the field and has been outside your city for at least 10 seconds, it gains the Eternal Emperor effect for 8 seconds whenever it enters combat, can trigger once every 60 seconds. Whenever their troop deals direct damage with Iron Pierces Bronze or Eternal Emperor effect, it spends 20 rage, won't trigger without sufficient rage, to deal extra direct damage to all targets and drain 10 rage from them with a damage factor of 200 waning. Okay, so there are two changes to this skill. The first one is that originally Emperor Qin had to be outside of your city for at least 10 seconds. Here they specify that it has to have not been in a building for at least 10 seconds. And I think that this change, I guess people are saying that this is to prevent people from city hopping with Emperor Qin, but even if you look at the original wording, I would say that it doesn't change that much. They're just more specific, right? The original wording said that you had to be outside of your city for 10 seconds, which kind of makes it so you can't city hop with this anyway, right? If you jump out of your city for the first 10 seconds, you're not going to get this benefit. Now they are specifying that you have to have not been in a building for at least 10 seconds. So the difference here is that I guess if you jump in a resource node with the updated text, does that change anything here? Are resource nodes considered buildings? I don't think they are, but we'll have to wait and see and test that here. So there is a distinction between when this skill starts to take effect. Previously you had to be on the map effectively for 10 seconds. Now it's the case that you have to have not been in a building for 10 seconds. So okay, that's worth noting. But the bigger change here, and maybe this is just textual because, you know, obviously this commander has not been in the game yet, so we actually have no idea how this was supposed to work initially. All that we can go off of is what they've said in the text. Okay, but the big change here is when you're spending rage. Okay, originally it said you spend 20 rage to deal extra direct damage to all targets and drain 10 rage from them with a 200 damage factor. The new text says that you spend 20 rage per target. So now instead of spending 20 rage, you could spend up to 100 rage to deal the damage here. Now this is sort of a double-edged sword because first of all, you cast your active skills based on rage spent, which means the more rage that you spend here, the faster you're going to cast your active skill. So this looks like a buff to Emperor Qin, which is insane. The downside here is that it says won't trigger without sufficient rage. So it's possible that now that the rage cost has gone up from just 20 for 5 targets to 100 for 5 targets, the probability that this doesn't trigger has now increased because the rage cost has gone up. Now what we don't know is, does each target trigger individually? So for example, you hit one target, you spend 20 rage, you deal the damage, then there's a next target, you spend 20 rage, deal the damage. Does it, you know, trigger in increments of 20, or does it just say, oh, there's 5 targets, we need 100 rage, we don't have 100 rage, we don't cast it at all, right? That's one way that this could work. Or again, it could be in steps. It could be, okay, there's 5 targets, so we hit 1 target, we can afford that, that's 20. 2 targets, we can afford that, that's another 20. 3 targets, we can afford that, that's 60. 4 targets, oh, we don't actually have 80 rage, we can't hit the 4th target and beyond, right? It could go either way. I don't know how that's going to be. So again, I want to be very clear here, spending more rage with this skill is actually a good thing. A lot of players see this and think, oh, that's a nerf, and if it were any other commander, you would be correct. But with Emperor Qin, spending rage is a good thing. You actually cast your active skills faster. So with that being said, you know, double-edged sword, it's good in that way, but it might be the case that this will trigger less frequently because you might not have enough rage to do it. Now again, 100 rage isn't a crazy amount of rage, but when you look at an Emperor Qin's entire kit, he's spending rage like crazy in a bunch of different ways. So we'll have to wait and see how often this won't actually trigger. The next thing we have to look at is the expertise, because this also allegedly has changed. And so let's take a look at what it is. This is what it is now. This is the current updated text. It says, if this commander's troop is in the field and has not been in a building for at least 10 seconds, it gains the Eternal Emperor effect for 10 seconds whenever it enters combat. Can trigger once every 60 seconds. Whenever their troop deals direct damage with Iron Pieces Bronze or the Eternal Emperor effect, it deals extra direct damage to all targets and drains 15 rage from them. Damage factor of 250 waning. Spending 25 rage per target, won't trigger without sufficient rage. So again, we see that this is just an enhanced version of the 3rd skill. You'll see the numbers have gone up from 10 to 15 and 20 to 25 respectively. The damage factor goes up from 200 to 250, and you'll see that you have to have not been in a building for 10 seconds and you gain the buff for 10 seconds. Originally it was the same thing. You had to be in the field and has been outside of your city for at least 10 seconds. You gain 10 seconds of buff, 60-second cooldown, trigger time. Same thing, you spend 25 rage to deal damage factor, 15 rage from each target, damage factor 250 waning. So all in all, I would say that this change is, I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but it seems relatively minor. Now again, without the without this commander having been in the game yet, we don't actually know how big of a change this is or might have been, because we didn't get to test the original version versus the new version, right? So it's hard to say how big of a change this is. But again, when you're looking at Emperor Qin, and I just remind you guys with the active skill here, okay, it casts off of rage consumed. So the more ways that we can consume rage with Emperor Qin, the better. So in this instance, I would say that again, 25 rage per target, that is 125 rage that you're going to need for a 5 target AoE. Again, the downside to this change is that you might not have that much rage to get the maximum benefit because the rage has gone up. The benefit of that, however, is that now you're spending rage faster, which I think again is going to cast your active skill faster. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Again, I don't know what the big change is going to be when we're looking at the difference between being in the field for 10 seconds versus not being in a building for 10 seconds. That is a very nuanced change, but it's obviously one that they felt was important to make. So I suspect that they've made that change to balance some aspect of Emperor Qin's kit. It might be the case that, you know, this does prevent city hopping to a greater extent, or, you know, I guess if we're really looking deep into it, it could be the case that with the previous wording, what you could do is bring them out into the field, have them stand there for 10 seconds and then jump into an ally's city, and then they would possibly still have that buff because they've been outside of your city for 10 seconds, right? And then you can jump out of your ally city and sort of cheeseburger or target people and then run back to the city. So it does seem like that is probably what they were trying to combat here. So it's not, the change is not relevant for your city because it's still going to function the same, but it's more so to combat people from cheeseburgering out of allied cities. Maybe that is the big change here, and in that way it does seem like it is probably a nerf to Emperor Qin from a, you know, cheeseburgering or city hopping perspective. And I think that that is fair. I think we don't need more city hopping commanders in the game, and so, you know, Emperor Qin was looking like he could possibly be a really strong city hopping commander, and so I'm glad to see that they kind of caught that before he came into the game, because again, I just don't think we need more city popping commanders. So that change, I think you're not even going to notice that change in regular gameplay. It's only a change that you're going to notice if you were planning on city hopping out of allied cities with him, which is a relatively niche form of gameplay. But if we look at the other changes to this skill, it seems like, and again, it's the third skill and expertise because it's just a buffed version, it seems like you're going to be spending more rage here, which ironically is probably a buff. So I'm really curious to know how this is actually going to work in the game when it does come out. I'm curious to know what you guys think about this change. Is there anything that I have missed with this change? Is there a big glaringly obvious buff or nerf here that I didn't talk about? Let me know in the comments section below so we can have a discussion about this change. Do you think that this change was necessary to prevent more city hopping or to balance the commander better? I want to know what you guys think about this change down below. Do you think it's a little bit ridiculous that he's being changed before he comes into the game, or is this a sign that he was just too powerful? That it could also be the case. He was just too strong at certain things and they had to adjust it slightly. Let me know what you think down below. I do want to remind you guys that you are going to be able to get Emperor Qin for free from an upcoming event, which a lot of people were like, oh, big deal, it's just an unlock of the commander, who cares, right? Well, it's 10 sculptures, which, like, depending on how much you value that, that's between 9 and 10,000 gems worth of value. So like, I'm not complaining. I think that's fantastic. So I'm happy to get this commander unlocked for free. He's going to be unlocked for free in an upcoming Emperor Qin event, so stay tuned and look for him in game. Beyond that, I suspect he will be on the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, so I just want to be very clear here. This does seem like he will be the Wheel of Fortune commander, so if you miss him from that event, you'll probably be able to get him from the wheel, so just keep that in mind. And then later down the line, he'll probably show up in other forms and fashions, but for right now, that's how you're going to be able to get him. Let me know down below, are you excited for Emperor Qin still? I personally am. This barely changes anything for me, and in fact, it could even be stronger depending on how much and how fast you can spend that rage. I apologize for the air conditioner in the background. Hopefully you can't hear it too much. But the last thing I want to mention here, and this is something I just realized as I was recording this video, this is the skill icon for the expertise on Emperor Qin Shi Huang. And in the video where I shared with you guys how you can get him for free, there was a special legendary item in the Imperial Treasures event that I was very confused about. I was saying, guys, what even is this? I don't know what this is. What is the purpose of this? And I was trying to figure out in that video, what could this item even actually be? Museum relics don't have the orange background. Epic city skins don't have an orange background. Decorations in your city do not have an orange background. So I couldn't figure out what this actually was. But if we look at the expertise, that is the exact same golden, I guess it looks like a lion. So it seems likely that this item has something to do with Emperor Qin, but I mean, there's no way that it like unlocks the expertise, right? I don't think that, there's no way. I'm not even gonna speculate on that, right? But it's just bizarre that that item and the expertise on Emperor Qin they feature the exact same stone lion, I think it is. Is it possible that they have something planned similar to Ragnar Prime, where if you're playing in the King of All Britain KVK and you give Ragnar Prime his special accessory, then he becomes available for all true types? Could that be something similar here? I don't think that's it either, to be perfectly blunt with you. I don't think that's the case, but I just wanted to mention it here now that I noticed it. This definitely looks identical to the expertise in Emperor Qin, and so maybe that's a hint towards what this item could potentially be. So let me know what you guys think about that as well in the comment section below. While you're down there, drop a thumbs up on the video. It really helps out the channel a ton, and it will push this video out into the YouTube algorithm so other Rise of Kingdoms players might see it. And while you're down there, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.